unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Ah, yes, it's the first few moments of The Last Show. Welcome in. Pull up a bar stool. Let me tell you what happened today. My cat's biggest dream, his name's Tomato, is to just eat as much crinkly plastic as he can and throw up everywhere. And today, my friends, I am proud to announce he realized that dream 3 times, and I had to clean it up. That's it. That's the whole story. Tonight's show's going to be a great one. There has been a fascinating new trend of sexy chef influencers. My favorite of which essentially makes donuts, driving people wild. But why? Well, we're going to find out with the Donut Daddy in 10 minutes. So lock up your wives and maybe lock up your husbands as we find out what makes this dude tick. Then, secrets for how to control the population with lies. Is that something you're interested in doing? I hope not. But maybe by looking at how to use conspiracy theories for obedience and control, you can avoid it happening to you. We'll also talk about some insane examples over the last 60, 70 years of government tactics trying to control people with lies. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Soviet Union. You know what you did. Okay, I better grab some paper towel and cleaning spray in case my cat gets up to it again. Let's dive in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Quick content warning, our top story of the night, we'll hear in a moment, deals with adult themes. Nothing too graphic or explicit, but definitely adult themes. So parents with young kids listening or any sensitive listeners, to you I say, listener discretion advised. In case you haven't checked the news, there is an escalating trade war between the U.S. and Canada. But what people don't know is Canada has a secret weapon, a trump card, if you will. No pun intended there. Canada can withhold something from the U.S. population that is vital to the fabric of society. And by withholding it, Canada could win this trade war, wreaking havoc on the U.S. The thing that they could withhold is not potash, which is vital for fertilizer. It's not maple syrup, vital for pancakes. No, Canada could withhold the single biggest source of American pornography. Not only could Canada withhold porn from the U.S., it could take down the Republic by doing so and unite us all. That's right, the number one supplier of adult entertainment in the U.S. is a little website called Pornhub, whose parent company is based in Montreal. I am joined by Canadian Matt Puzhitsky, who came up with the idea. Follow him at Matt Puzhitsky on Instagram. Matt, I am so excited to talk to you about your amazing idea that could solve the trade war in about 5 minutes. Welcome to the show.
Hey, David. Thank you for having me. Let me just plug in there we go. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about it too. I'm surprised by the reaction that all of this has gotten because it is just a joke, but it looks like it's taken on a life of its own. And people are actually looking at this as a serious foreign policy technique, I guess, to win this trade war.
Well, whether we want to admit it or not, pornography is a widely consumed product in the U.S., and the biggest website is Canadian. Now, I don't know if it would be in the Canadian company's best interest to shut it down, but it might be in the national interest because I think it would get the attention of the average American who probably doesn't admit to using these websites, but probably uses this website. So, yeah, it's such a good idea. How did you come up with it?
Yeah, so I was just listening to a podcast, happened to mention that all of these porn sites, I think the company was MindGeek, right?
Yes, the adult website company was formerly MindGeek.
Yeah, so she mentioned that was actually based in Canada. It's a Canadian company founded in Montreal. And that was just a fun, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. I Googled it and I was just kind of taken aback by that fact, given the just immense prevalence and effect of porn on today's, pop culture and culture in general. I think that's kind of inarguable, but I was just surprised that it all started in Canada because I just, in my head, associated, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely American, but apparently not. And then this whole trade war started happening. So I literally just made a little joke about it. I'm like, hey guys, like, what are we going to do to the US to counter their tariffs? How about we ban Pornhub in the States? That should do the trick. Like, what else are they going to do? Knit? I thought it was a funny joke.
It is. It's an amazing joke, but it's also a really good idea.
I agree, but logistically, how would you even do that? Because it's a multinational company now. It's not even, I don't know if it's Canadian or not. I don't know how that would be possible, but people are definitely taking it seriously. So,
I mean, if the Canadian government put like a ban on the export of adult entertainment, the company would have to comply or sell itself. I don't know. It could be done. I'm not sure how, but there's got to be a way to shut off a website. There's countries that shut off the whole parts of the internet.
yeah, for sure. And it's already being done in like some more like conservative states like Texas, I know. I was just in Texas for a little bit, and not that I visit these sites other than for research purposes, but
Yeah, of course. Me too. I did a lot of research for this interview, but other than that, I'd never been on them.
Exactly. But I know they're already banning them in the States. So that's their own government banning them. So I'm sure there's a way to back channel it if the company has roots in Canada to somehow hit them with that hammer. Because it would be like game over if that's possible for Canada. I think that would be a huge win.
Is that what you think would happen if Canada actually figured out a way to ban these websites from the U.S.? Do you think the U.S. population would revolt and say, stop the trade war to their government?
Yeah. And again, I want to preface the fact that highlight the fact that I am a stand-up comedian. This is a joke. I did zero research other than is Pornhub Canadian before making it, and it now has a life of its own. But yes, I do think that if there is a way to ban Pornhub in the U.S., that would absolutely give us a leg up in this trade war.
Honestly, by just Googling the answer to a simple question and then listening to what the answer was, you're more qualified than most people who enter political arguments these days.
Yeah, I think, that is a valid statement.
You came up with this great point. The internet loves it. What do you make of the response? What has everyone been saying to you now that you came up with, for all intents and purposes, a joke?
Yeah, I mean, often it's funny how comedians often, a lot of my favorite comedians end up influencing politics in those kind of ways, because like a lot of the reasons that things are funny, why is a joke funny? That's a deep question, but like a lot of it stems in truth, right? Like, you know what they say, many a jest is said in truth, based in truth. I don't know. There we go. That's my point. I'm not a philosopher. I'm a comedian.
You think you're not qualified, but I think you are. You did the Googling. You asked whether it was a Canadian company. You're about as well informed as most people.
Exactly. And I actually don't like when comedians, I think a lot of some comedians say that they're the modern day philosophers. I don't think so at all. Where our job is to come up with jokes. And if the rest of society thinks that our jokes are deep enough or something like that to get some wisdom or life guidance from them, then good. But that's not our job, is to sit here and go, that was not my goal. I didn't whip out my phone and say, how am I going to influence my country's foreign policy in this trade war? That was not my goal. That ended up being what kind of happened, but was not my goal. And I'm a comedian. I make jokes. And I think people are taking this too seriously, but at the same time, maybe there is something to it. Maybe I did, help out a little bit.
Well, with you mentioning whipping things out, we got to leave it at that. Matt, thanks for your time.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, David. Great talk.
And there you have it. Sometimes the stupidest ideas might be the best ideas. And I do wonder, what impact would it have if those websites were blocked on international relations? You'd really be getting people where it hurts the most. I've got a few moments now to tell you that if you like what you hear or you're going to miss part of tonight's show, fear not, you can download The Last Show as a podcast. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza and find out more. That's .pizza, not .com. We're also available on all your favorite podcast apps. Now, after the break, lock up your significant others. We will have the world's sexiest pastry influencer on the show. The man is ripped. The man makes donuts. They call him the Donut Daddy. He stares at the camera, talks sensually, makes delicious treats, and drives women and men on the internet wild. He is a viral sensation, and we'll find out what makes him tick, how he gets those abs, and why he is driving people crazy on the internet just trying to make donuts. Donut Daddy's coming up in a minute.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. explore your deepest desires, if you dare. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Lock up your wives, lock up your husbands. I am here with the world's sexiest pastry influencer to ever be on the show tonight. He knows what you need because you need bread or you need pastry, with a K, N-E-A-D. He's Anthony Randello. Jan, he's the Donut Daddy. Find him at donutdaddy.com. Anthony, what a pleasure.
How you doing?
I am doing good. You are part of a wave of sexy chef influencers, and you drive people wild with your wiles, with your body, and then with your delicious foods. How does one get into this line of creation, this line of work, this line of doing whatever it is that you do?
Yeah. To be honest, it was pretty random. Like, I have a donut shop and I've been doing like pastry business for a while. And I just wanted to start doing some like videos online. And my name was already the Donut Daddy online. Like, it was like a little joke that I had, like, I don't know, just with like my friends and stuff like that, because I had the donut business. And then I figured, well, my name's Donut Daddy online, and I'm going to start doing some kind of video online to, try to build a social media following. And I just thought, why not, do some sexy cooking videos. And I just kind of just like did one for fun, and then it just kind of blew up. And then I just kept going. I didn't know it was going to become like its own genre, so to speak. It just kind of happened slowly. Yeah.
Well, you're pretty much the same as me, other than two main things. One, you're entertaining, I'm not, and B, you're handsome, I'm not. But other than that, we're completely similar. Let me ask you this. Why donuts? Why not croissants or croissants or something else sexy?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's like, it probably would have been better to, start with a more, something like that, like a croissant that's got, that seems more, European and sexy like that, and more intricate. A donut's not as complicated as, like a croissant or something. But yeah, it just kind of like, that was the business I was in. So I was like, this is what I know the best. So yeah.
The other night I had a professional on who kind of analyzed the trends of sexy chef influencers. And she was talking about how a lot of adult-themed entertainment on the internet, a lot of sexy content on the internet is really aimed at the male gaze, for men to consume. And this new breed of sexy chefs is predominantly women viewing them. How do you feel about contributing to sort of an empowerment movement of creating adult-specific content for women?
Yeah, it's really strange because...
You didn't think I'd have a hard-hitting question, did you?
No, it's like, it's super strange because I didn't know about that as well. I didn't even think about that type of thing. And then the more kind of like interviews I've done with media and stuff like that, they've kind of been from a lot of that place as well. Like, this is kind of like a women empowering thing. And yeah, it's very interesting because I didn't know it existed, because I just thought like, the internet was just flooded with like dudes, commenting on girls' thirst trappy things,
Yeah.
And so I didn't know this was a thing until I like did my first post, and then it went kind of viral. And then I noticed there was a lot of females like kind of commenting, saying different things. And that's when I'm like, okay, this is definitely its own genre. It's definitely like the male equivalent of what females are kind of doing. And yeah, it was really interesting. Like, it was definitely like an eye opener when I started doing it. Yeah.
You just wanted to take off your shirt and make some donuts. You weren't here to contribute on some deep level, but yet you have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
Do you feel responsibility to create sexy content with that?
Well, now, because like I've established myself more in this kind of genre and place, I've kind of got to this point where it's like, I still create the kind of content that like I want to create, but it's definitely like now I have like, there's more of like a standard to set. Like, there has to be, I have to try to make my videos better than the last time. So it's definitely more like, what's the word? Like, you have to lift the game each time. So it becomes more and more difficult, but also easier at the same time because I have a bit of an audience. So it's like, it's okay. Yeah, it's not too bad, like where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Next extremely hard-hitting question. Is there a sexiest donut flavor? And if so, what does it say about the person who orders it?
Yeah, so sexy, donut flavors. I mean, I think anything with chocolate, because chocolate is like this universally like kind of sexy thing, like it's rich, smooth, you could have it with like some strawberries or whatever, so.
Are you hitting on me, Anthony? I couldn't tell.
And so I think like anything with chocolate is kind of like, or with strawberries is kind of like a sexy thing in my opinion. Yeah.
What's been your favorite moment in all that you've been doing? What's been your favorite video or favorite odd thing that's happened since you started putting up sexy videos?
Yeah, I'd say my favorite part about it, I mean, it first started like I didn't think that I was going to get all these fans. So that was kind of really exciting at the beginning. And then as time got on, I kind of got more into creating the best video I could. And then now it's like, okay, how can I create the best dish I can with the best video? And that's all really exciting. And then obviously like getting a video that goes real viral, or like I've had a few videos that people have done, like kind of, it's become like a bit of a skit, like me with like this bag of flour on my shoulder and I slap it. And then there was like a bunch of other dudes doing it with like gardening. They had like a bag of gardening, mulch, and they did that. And then it kind of like became this stitch thing of like, it started with my flour slap bag because that video went viral. And so that was really interesting because it's like,
yeah, you became a meme. I mean, that's like peak status right there. I think all of us could only hope to be a meme.
So yeah, it kind of like, it was super random because like at that time when I released that video, I was just overworked. Like I was just putting the video, I wasn't thinking anything. And then it just like went massively viral. And that was really cool because this is like, from all the experience. But now at the moment, it's kind of, I'm more now thinking like, okay, and how can I do something even bigger and more impactful, like release a bigger product that I can get out in the world, That's kind of my next stage thoughts.
You make baking, cooking look effortless, but as a home cook who used to, before I started cooking at home, I thought this is going to be easy. But when you have your first, friends over to eat what you've made, that's when you get that rude awakening that you're terrible at it and you got a long journey to go. Any tips for people who are trying to get into baking, who watch your videos, think it's easy, and then realize it actually takes a lot of work?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely hard. Like it takes a long time to get good at it, and you just learn little tricks along the way. But I would say for beginners out there, probably to just know the fundamentals. Like you don't have to know everything. Like I did it the hard way where I would start with a complicated recipe and learn little bits through it, but it's the hard way. So just start with small recipes, simple recipes, and kind of knowing your fundamentals, like how to temper chocolate or how to make a pastry cream.
Or that you can substitute sugar for salt.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Anthony, it's been a great pleasure talking to you today. Where can people find out more about the Donut Daddy? And by that, I mean watch videos of you shirtless making pastries.
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. So if you go to Instagram and The Donut Daddy, I'm on there. And then, we've got some exciting stuff coming up, towards, end of this year, next year. I'm going to be releasing a book. So, stay tuned.
Anthony, it was a pleasure talking to you. Appreciate your time.
All right, sweet. Good talking to you.
Anthony Randello-Yan is the Donut Daddy. Find him at donutdaddy.com or on Instagram at the Donut Daddy. If you were trying to control the population, how might you do that? Would you use conspiracy theories? Well, coming up after the break, we'll go over what conspiracies can be used for obedience and control. What rumors could you spread to take over the world? I'm hoping you don't do that. But I think we're all curious what they might be. Find out in just a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. broadcasting from the intersection of chaos and more chaos. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Just when you thought you were safe from conspiracy theories, we're going to go over yet another one you got to watch out for. It's the kind of conspiracy that isn't true, but is trying to get you to believe it. For example, if one political party had you believe that their opponents were lizard people, you would vote for the original party, wouldn't you? This is Conspiracy Theories for Obedience and Control, and that is our topic with Dr. Lee Kuhnle, who's a political science professor at Humber College, who co-hosts the Uncover Up podcast. Lee, oh my God, I'm so happy to have you on the show.
I'm so glad to be here, David. Thanks for having me. And congratulations on this show. I'm so thrilled for you. This is fantastic.
I am thrilled to have you on here for Conspiracy Corner. I forgot to say the name, and it's an amazing name. Why is it that people who seek to control us try to get us to believe in things that patently aren't true?
Well, it's a really powerful political tool if you can actually make it work. And it's the basis of basically the entire logic behind disinformation. If you can get your political enemy to believe something, that could do the same damage that, lots of troops and lots of spies and lots of bombs, all of which cost so much money to do. You could just do it by getting people to believe stuff. And one idea that I've really found interesting in this wild journey my colleague Nathan Radke and I have had in just investigating and exploring conspiracy theories is this use of conspiracy theories, as you said, for social control. Now, we know the way it's supposed to work, right? Like the genre of conspiracies, like the romance genre, you know what to expect. And the genre of conspiracies, whether it be in fiction or it's deployed as social theory, it always works the same way, which is that there is the kind of mainstream truth, which is not true. It's a lie. That's the assumption in the conspiracy theory, right? And then there are certain people, intelligent citizen sleuths, who are able to kind of poke through the illusion and get to the reality behind it. And look, that's the way if you're dealing with a real conspiracy, that's the way it really works. I mean,
no, I've watched Flat Earth YouTubes, Lee. Like, I've seen these people try to peddle themselves as knowing the real truth. There's a conspiracy that every pilot is in on, every GPS company is in on, every space agency is in on, and they're just trying to get you. These ones are more, fun. They're not as, like, the government's trying to control us necessarily.
No, that's true. But the underlying structure is there's this mainstream truth, which is a lie. And then there's the conspiratorial narrative, and that's the real truth, although it's often hidden. And, narratively, this is so well depicted in a movie I'm sure you love. I'm sure we've talked about it. They Live, right? What is it, 87, I think?
John Carpenter, this guy gets a pair of shades. Everything's normal. The world's normal. He puts on these special pair of specs, and then what happens?
And then he sees that actually there, as you said in your intro, there's like a version of the lizard people. There are these aliens who are actually controlling all of human society, and they're putting out subliminal messages. They're putting people to sleep so that they can control them. And that's the vision of reality that we all get. And then he puts on these kind of conspiracy specs that allow him to see the truth. And he discovers a reality that's hidden.
It's such a cheesy and amazing movie. If anyone's going to take anything from this so they don't care what we're saying, just watch They Live. You'll have learned what you need to learn.
Yeah, exactly. Go watch that movie. But what if sometimes the story is actually different than that, that there's another way to deploy conspiracies? And I'm thinking here of, if you remember 1984, now who was the kind of the opposite of Big Brother was Emmanuel Goldstein, I think. So he's a fictitious dissident, political dissident that the protagonist discovers. And he gives an alternative version of reality, except, and this is the important part, Emmanuel Goldstein was actually created by the government in order to ensnare dissidents.
Exactly. Or control dissidents. Like,
exactly.
We're giving you a narrative. We're controlling everything. We're telling you lies, and we're giving you a narrative to believe if you don't believe it. And that narrative is going to be a tool to control you as well.
Exactly. And that's this other dimension of conspiracies I wanted to bring up today, this kind of 1984 version where there are narratives produced by people in power, be it the CIA, the KGB, be it your local community PTA council or whatever, that when we accept those narratives, lead us to police ourselves and engage in precisely the kind of conformist, obedient behavior that is expected of us. So can I give you an example?
Of course.
So this comes from my childhood. And unlike the others on this list, I can't verify which group, did this as a conspiracy, but it nonetheless gives the basic template of how it works. So it's in Toronto, Canada. This would have been a conspiracy going across probably the United States as well as most of Canada as well. And during this period in the early 90s, marijuana, cannabis, pot, whatever you call it these days, is illegal. But not only is it illegal, there is a worry encapsulated in this theory of the gateway drug that if you were to use marijuana, it would inevitably lead you to much harder drugs and you would lose control of your life. And suddenly, you're shooting up behind a 7-Eleven because you smoked a joint, in grade 11 or something.
Reefer Madness kind of era.
Reefer Madness, I think, is the 50s, but it's an updated version.
You're right. Okay. A reverberation of Reefer Madness.
Now, so I remember growing up hearing about that there were unscrupulous dealers who were mixing another substance in with the pot in order to get you addicted, right? And what that substance was always varied. It could be PCP, it could be crack cocaine, it could be LSD, it could be something else. But the point was, you're this unsuspecting kid getting some pot, but actually you're getting something much more dangerous. And because you don't know this, you're going to maybe end up in hospital, maybe have a heart attack. Now, to my knowledge, this never happened, at least not in any kind of large-scale way where there was a concerted effort to, frankly, waste perfectly good crack cocaine on marijuana for kids. It doesn't make any sense, right? Like, why would you even do that? But besides that, there's I don't know of any drug busts or anything. But here's the thing. I worried about it, as a young person. And it wasn't like I thought, all the dealers are doing this all the time. But all you needed to worry about was that it could potentially happen. And you start policing yourself in precisely the way that the adults and the PTA members and the teachers and the priests and everybody else wanted you to, which is don't smoke pot, kids, right?
Not that I would ever admit to a smoking pot, and so this is for parody purposes. I didn't actually believe this, but I believed that too as a kid, and it kept me away from these substances. Again, for parody purposes, I've never tried any of this.
Right? So, and I think this gives precisely this kind of template of a conspiracy theory that's not true, but its purpose is to generate social conformity and obedience by getting us to police ourselves. And so this is like a whole genre of conspiracies out there that have this kind of dimension to them. And I'm sure we can take a look at a couple of other ones. There's some really great gems that come from Eastern Europe, but they all have this same kind of aspect where it's the very suspicion that we have that, I'm not going to let myself get fooled, that gets us interested in conspiracies to begin with, can then be the very foundation that gets us to become manipulated by conspiracy theories.
So you're worried about a government that is conspiring against you, and by worrying, you're more likely to believe in those conspiracies, and then those conspiracies could be put forth by the leadership to try to control you. What do I even believe these days? That is the question as we go over conspiracies for obedience and control here with Dr. Lee Kuhnle. When we come back, we'll look at specific examples from the past, in particular from the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. And they're kind of amazing. They're things that you may have heard, you may have believed, but didn't know that they were part of a wider conspiracy. We'll be back with Conspiracy Corner in just a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment, The Last Show with David Cooper.
And we are back with Dr. Lee Kuhnle, a political science professor at Humber Polytechnic. Not Humber College. I messed that up before the break. He's the host of the Uncover Up podcast, a podcast that covers conspiracy theories. Do check it out. You can download that wherever podcasts are found. Lee, we are talking conspiracy theories for obedience and control. When leaders, when governments, when any authority seeks to get you to believe something that isn't true, to try to control you. We were talking about believing that drugs were laced when they weren't, to try to get kids to stay away from them, to question every single potentially low-risk drug like cannabis and treat it as it's the most dangerous, harmful drug ever, thereby having a chilling effect. Did I use that phrase right? I don't know. On kids' usage. But I want to go to some more sinister ones that were from the last century over to Eastern Europe, because the Soviet Union was pretty good at spreading rumors to try to control their population, were they not?
Yes. And the next two, one comes from the Soviet Union directly, one comes from former East Germany. And unlike the laced pot example, we know that the KGB and the MFS actually were at the root of these ones. So let me give you the first example. I have to give a shout out to our Russian translator and colleague on the podcast, Snezhana Chukhanova. Now, I've practiced that name a lot. I hope I did it justice, because this example comes from her. So any country's economy, one of the threats to it is the black market. And that's just because you don't want too much of your economy going through the black market because, among other things, it's just not taxable. And in the Soviet Union, there was a very robust black market economy, and a lot of the goods that were really had high trade value were Western products, Western cigarettes, and especially things like LPs and blue jeans. Western blue jeans, the Levi button-up blue jeans. I mean, that was, the iconic fashion symbol of the West. And that was money on the black market in the Soviet Union. Now, of course, as the official Soviets, they don't want you buying this stuff for, I guess, a couple of reasons. The less important, I personally would argue, is the ideological stuff, is Western infiltration. It's more the fact that you're just not supporting the Soviet economy, which we know in the 80s was already quite weak. And
this is one of the great failings of the Soviet Union. The market was not thriving over most of its existence.
Yeah. So how do you get people to not buy on the black market, especially in this case, blue jeans? So here's this conspiracy that the KGB devises, which is that they started a rumor that Western blue jeans would have glass capsules sewn into the seams of them, deliberately sewn into the seams. These glass capsules would have fleas, and the fleas would have syphilis. So if you bought your Western blue jeans on the black market and brought them home and put them on, by wearing them, you break the glass capsule, release the fleas. Now, not only are you then infesting yourself and your home with fleas, which is probably bad enough, but then those fleas are also supposedly infecting you and your partner and your family with syphilis.
It's genius, if not sinister. It's a lot easier than arresting everybody for buying Western jeans off the black market.
Is that great?
And it's also great for the economy because it potentially shuts down that black market if the population believes it. Now, it's totally unethical lying to your people, but hey, did the KGB have many qualms doing that? Probably not.
No, and I think you're right. Like, as sort of from a cynical perspective, I totally agree with you that it's genius, because you get people to do the hard work of policing themselves in a way that you could never do as effectively if you actually had to hire cops to do this. I mean, you can't follow everybody around all the time. But if this kind of stuff gets believed, you don't need to. People are like, I'd rather not mess with that.
Did it work?
Well, that's an interesting question. To my knowledge, there aren't any, real longitudinal studies to suggest that there was a drop once this kind of conspiracy was popular enough. I don't even know how you would measure that. So I don't know, but I can reflect on my own example from the pot. And I was like, well, with both of us, it did scare us. We did know it and we did worry about it. And I could imagine it did turns at least some people away from the black market.
And all it is a rumor. You don't need to round up people and arrest them. You don't have to bust importers. You don't have to bust black markets. It's just spreading like a secret or a rumor.
Yeah.
And whether it worked amazingly or just a little bit, it's a perfect example of a conspiracy for obedience and control. And I feel like the Soviets and in general, that region in that era, let's go to East Germany before the Berlin Wall fell now.
It's rather similar to the KGB example. The conspiracy is in East Germany. It was about West German TV. And the problem with East Germany, while it was part of the Soviet satellites umbrella system, it was a communist state and it was not part of West Germany. The problem was that it was so close to West Germany. It was, in fact, so close that the East Germans very easily, just with little sort of rabbit ear antennas on the back of their TV, could pick up West German TV, which is awkward because you then get a very direct counter narrative to the official propaganda. You know, you could watch West German news in East Germany and see what other world leaders were saying or how other people were living. You know, we all know that in fiction narratives, like if we watch reruns of Friends, we know that nobody can afford those kinds of apartments for real. But when you see news broadcasts and you see people in their fancy cars and their new bicycles and their nice outfits, this is a kind of very blatant contrast with what you're living with, which was not that in East Germany in the 80s. How do you get East Germans to stop watching West German television? Because it's not good for ideological coherence.
Well, I don't know how well they did. The wall did get ripped down, but
well, exactly. But one way they tried to do it was to convince East Germans that the West Germans, because you can't trust the capitalists, the West Germans are beaming brainwashing beams through the TV. And so if you watch it, you're going to get brainwashed and turn into like a West German agent. But without your control.
Like subliminal messages or brain waves? Like what was the nature of the rumor?
Often these kinds of things, especially because the rumors aren't really articulated or you get various versions. So I've heard both. I've heard subliminal messages. I've heard a beam. And, anytime you mention a beam, I'm like, I'm in. I'm sold. I buy it because I don't know physics or chemistry or anything. So, of course, a beam in television would get into my head and mess with I don't know. But nonetheless, it was the same idea of self-policing. There is many other examples of this, not just out of Eastern Europe, the Soviet Union. There is how sometimes elements of the American security apparatus, say, for example, Air Force intelligence, has used UFO conspiracies as a way to get people to stop talking about secret projects that they accidentally discovered.
Sure.
Right. So we don't have time for it now, but there's this very famous case of Air Force agent Doty and his disinformation campaign against the guy named Paul Benowitz, which happened mostly in the late 70s into the 80s.
Is the short of this one, this guy observed some classified Air Force technology and then the government told him it was UFOs and then he starts to believe it and becomes discredited? Exactly.
And what it does is, it's sort of more in the line of the 1984 example, is it just sort of shuts down any kind of accidental leakage or any kind of dissent or any kind of worry about, hey, wait a minute, what is my government doing right now? So this is just with the heightened amount of conspiracies and the intensity around us. I thought this was an important kind of element to bring up, just to think about, for those of us who aren't living and breathing conspiracies every day, that there's also this other dimension that sometimes these narratives get instrumentalized.
Well, Lee, I love having you on the show, and that's not a conspiracy theory to get you to obey or control you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, David.
Dr. Lee Kuhnle teaches political science at Humber Polytechnic. Do you have a type, like sexually? Maybe it's long hair, maybe it's short hair. But is there an issue with types? Like, some of them are kind of weird, right? Well, things are about to get sexy as we discuss just that after the break. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
If I told you I liked redheads, you'd probably think, okay, oddly specific, whatever. What if I told you I had a thing for flight attendants and flight attendants only? I said flight attendants are my singular type. You'd think that was a little weird. And I would just say, hey, it's my type. And that's our topic here on Sex, Etc. with Samantha Bitty, sexual health and consent educator. Check out her podcast, What Would Samantha Bitty Do? That's available wherever podcasts are found. We are going to discuss, is there such a thing as having a type, or is it just problematic? Samantha, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. This is a hefty one because for me, it really depends on what the type is. And then there's this whole layer like, okay, you can have your type, but maybe keep your mouth shut about it because it's uncomfortable. Where do we even begin with this topic? Because it's kind of like there's some uncomfortable areas in it, but I want to talk about them.
So, first of all, I suggested this topic to you because you and I have known each other for years. We've been on the radio together. We've been on Pocket. We've worked together for years. Many, many times you have affirmed that you have a type that is redheads. You know, your partner is a redhead.
Yep.
She's adorable. We love her.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked about like redhead crushes you have. And so I somewhat accidentally, I'm now redheaded. And it occurred to me, it amused me because I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell you. I didn't tell anyone. It's like, am I now your type? So this topic is really funny to me because, as you said,
so not only are we going into like uncomfortable types, you're also trying to make me uncomfortable, which honestly I love. And thank you, Samantha. And your hair looks great.
Thank you.
And I'm not answering your question.
As I said, I have worked with you a long time. I know what kind of weird stuff you have going on. So I know that making you a little uncomfortable is something that you like. So having a type, having attraction to specific attributes, I don't think there's anything innately problematic about that. I think that, some of those things are, we explore why it may be. It's like, oh, something happened in childhood, or like, our first crush on TV or whatever it is. I believe that it becomes problematic when, as you named, there can be some like really clear issues or instances of that where it becomes, I don't know, when you want to look at certain intersections that people exist at, power dynamics, etc. Beyond those like obvious and glaring things, I think it becomes problematic when it's like, but I'm only attracted to this particular attribute, and that there's no openness or willingness to explore attraction and desire, or to exclude entire groups of people because, maybe they aren't tall or they are blonde or whatever.
Yeah, and I think our types can be riddled in bias because we're raised with bias. There's bias everywhere, racial, all kinds of biases that we're brought up with subconsciously, and then they can manifest as your type, and they say, oh, it's just my type, but you've excluded a whole group, and I don't know if it's like an innate human thing. For example, I was once interviewing someone on my show. My girlfriend Miranda's going to hate that I tell this story. It was many, many years ago, and this person, quote unquote, wasn't my type. And it was at a table. We were right next to each other, and something went on. And I actually spoke about it on the show, and Miranda knows. This person had these pheromones or this smell, and it was driving me crazy. She smelled amazing. And to this day, I'm like, I have a crush on this person. And she looks nothing like, quote unquote, whatever my type is. So like, I don't think these things are as deep grained as we think they are. I think we can just sort of like say a narrative about ourselves. Oh, I only like this type of person. But I don't even know if it's true on like a deep level.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I think that being attracted to certain attributes, to me, maybe innate is the wrong word, but there's a certain element of unconsciousness to it, unintention. And then there's when it becomes like pathological, like when you look at someone and they're like, you look at all their exes and you're like, oh, that's the same person.
It's a lookalike competition.
Right. Or when you see someone, it's like, oh, that's I have to keep that person away from my partner because they can't help themselves around this particular, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you brought up the topic of pheromones, or like how someone smells or how they carry themselves energetically. And I once had a lover who said, I was asking them about, do you have a type? Like, I'm someone I exist in a certain type of body and like racialization where I can be fetishized, right? And that's usually really clear to me when someone is like flirting at me versus with me. So when I'm engaging with someone who might be a lover or somebody new that I'm dating, I'll like investigate, like, oh, like what attracted you to me? Like, do you have a type? And I remember this one, someone who did become my lover said, somebody's hot when my body tells me they're hot. And I really loved that because he's like, yeah, I'm like a straight dude or whatever. But there was something so pansexual about that to me where it was like, yeah, I don't know. If my body tells me someone's hot, they're hot. And I've always tried to kind of adopt that posture because when we do that, it prevents those kind of internalized external values and biases around attractiveness, around perception of what someone else thinks of my partner and how that reflects on me as a person, my value. And allows me to have more authentic connections. And it's like, I will absolutely someone who is conventionally ugly.
If your body tells you yes, I'm exactly the same way. I kind of get that with like celebrities. I don't have like celebrity crushes that are like any particular type. It's just like a holistic personality vibe. And that always confuses my girlfriend because it's not redheads, it's not what she thinks. Like, do you know the actor Amy Sedaris? She's like a comedian.
Yeah.
Should I be listing these people? I don't know. Is it weird? Definitely. Or like Jessica Williams, who's in that show Shrinking, who's like 1,000,000 feet tall.
I don't know that one, but I do know
Amy Sedaris.
The first one.
These are not falling into my classic types, but like I'm the same way. And sure, I like, people with red hair. It's a thing. My first girlfriend had red hair when I was 10 or 12 or however old we were. That's probably where it came from. My girlfriend calls her patient zero. But yeah, I think when when it becomes a red flag is it's like you're very close-minded. Maybe it's an ethnicity. Maybe it's like an age group. Maybe it's a physical attribute. And you're so rigid about it. It gets kind of weird, dude, when you're fixated on it.
I think it's weird. And I think that the level, as I said, the level of problematic depends on some of those kind of like social hierarchy type things. Like, okay, are you only attracted to this person or are you engaging in white supremacy? Like that sort of thing.
How do we break the mold? Like, how do we expand our horizons? If we tell a narrative about ourselves, we only like this kind of person, but we try to be open-minded. Do we just people who don't fit the mold? Is it really that simple?
I also think that would be problematic, but I would, my advice around it would be to always be in a practice of self-awareness and self-investigation. Like what, when we experience resistance or attraction, right? Like, I think it's like you might be attracted to someone, but they don't fit into your mold or your type. Investigate your resistance to that attraction. And that I think can help to broaden and open up your willingness to not just be relegated to like one specific aesthetic.
Samantha, what a pleasure to have you. Check out Samantha's podcast, What Would Samantha Bitty Do? Just search that on Spotify, Apple, wherever podcasts are found. Samantha Bitty, sexual health and consent educator. Thank you for chatting with me today.
Thanks, David.
All right, up next, man is writing a resume hard these days. I've known people who stay in the same job, even though they're qualified for another one because they can't bear to write their resume. I get it. But in case you have gotten around to updating your resume, you might be making some serious mistakes without even knowing it. What are those mistakes? And what controversial errors are people making these days with their resumes? We'll find out together in just a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Your procrastination deserves a destination. Welcome The Last Show with David Cooper.
Ever stayed in a job because you couldn't be bothered to update your resume? I am guilty as charged there, but maybe you do have a great resume. Maybe your resume is flawless, or at least you think it is. You probably have mistakes in it. Recently, resume writer Débora Casey went viral for sharing 10 things to leave off of your resume, and we're going to chat about them with Megan Liscomb, a senior lifestyle editor at BuzzFeed. I want to go over these mistakes. Megan, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David.
I always updated my resume back when I had a corporate job, like every few months, because if I let it go stale, the process of doing it was too daunting to me. I thought I had a good resume. And then I started going through a list of common mistakes, and I realized maybe I didn't.
Uh-oh.
So let's jump into them. This first mistake I would never do. I'm surprised people are doing it. Putting your salary on your resume. Have you seen a resume like that?
I personally have never seen this, and this was like a very new, very strange one for me. I was honestly quite shocked. I think that what's happening is that a lot more job postings are starting to list salaries and salary ranges. And so people, I think especially people who are newer to the workforce, they might see that signal and think, oh, I should put my current salary on my resume to show them that, where I'm at as I'm applying for this job that's in this range. But you really, really don't want to do that. Can you guess why?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes you look weird and entitled. Look, I think salary transparency is good. It helps reduce pay disparities for people who just don't know how to negotiate. And that can affect minorities and people who, aren't all kinds of folks who deserve equal pay that aren't getting it. Having said that, it's more on the employer side to disclose that, less on the employees to say, pay me this.
Absolutely. And another issue that can come up is, say you're underpaid in your job right now. Why would you want to advertise that? That just sends a message to employers that they can lowball you.
That was the obvious thing that you were asking and I didn't get.
That's why I'm here.
This one at the end of the resume, I do have it. For me, it's just a formality. It's like, I don't even know, putting your name at the top and then putting references available upon request at the very bottom. What's so bad about that?
It's not the worst possible mistake. But the thing is, when you want to fit tons, like all of the information you want to fit on your resume, you want to get it into one page. You don't want to have anything in there that's really not doing anything for you, right?
Yes, and that leads me to my next one, having way too many pages. I did, back when I lived in the corporate world, have a 2-page resume, but it only became 2 pages when I had like 7 or 8 years of progressive experience from being what they call an individual contributor to a manager. I don't mind a 2-pager. Some people swear against it, but I think we can all agree that a 3-pager is just like, look, unless you're applying to be a professor, 3 pages is way too much.
Yeah, 3 pages is beyond. It's above and beyond. You don't need 3 pages. No one's going to look at 3 pages. They will not even print that 3rd page, most likely, if they print them at all. And I think what you mentioned with having a longer resume when you're more established in your career, that's perfectly fine. That's normal. No worries if you have a 2-page resume and you're like a more senior worker. But for people who are maybe just starting out or they're still in that early phase of the career, stick to 1 page. And honestly, even later in your career, you can probably still boil it down to 1 page if you're being very targeted for the very specific role that you are applying to.
I have seen people just entering the workforce. I used to work in the tech sector, rest in peace. People who've never had real jobs kind of list like their hobby projects. Like, oh, I worked on this app with some friends that didn't make any money. I've seen an entry-level employee who's never had a job before have a 3-page resume with hobby projects. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
No, that's too much. That's basically like you wouldn't send your diary in. So don't send that in. Your boss, unfortunately, doesn't care if you are a great dog walker.
This next one, I've got a caveat, and I think my partner, who is a designer, would agree. Don't put color on your resume. I mean, I wouldn't even think to. Are people doing this? It's like a rainbow resume? What's going on?
Yes, this was a spicy one. People have big feelings about color on the resume. And I think you see it a lot in creative positions, designers, etc. But what's happening is a lot of times your resume isn't being looked at by human eyes first. It's going through what's called an application tracking system, or an ATS. And it's very often being scanned by an AI. And I don't know if you've seen the way AI draws hands, but you don't want to give them hard tasks because it's not good at the things that you think it might be good at. It's good at very specific things. And so having color on your resume can make it harder for the bots to read it and understand the information that you have so diligently copied out there. And so you just don't want to add any obstacles. You want smooth sailing.
I left the corporate world at the end of 2020. I guess AI resume consumption wasn't as popular then. That didn't even occur to me. So an AI would ingest my colorful resume, and if I had like a light yellow, it wouldn't see the text, and then it wouldn't get into the recruiting or HR system that people are using to find candidates, and I would get tossed aside. Is that what could happen?
That can happen. I mean, a lot of companies aren't using these tools, but many companies are. It's like a very transitional Wild West kind of time for AI. And so what can happen is the AI will go through a stack of resumes before human eyes even touch them, and it'll just filter out anything that's like, this person doesn't meet 75% of the requirements. Why would we bother interviewing them or talking with them or looking at this resume?
I'm here with Megan Liscomb going over the things you should leave off your resume in 2025. This one definitely is on my resume, and I still don't understand, even reading through why I shouldn't put it on here. Putting in my full home address. Shouldn't I tell employers where I live?
So yeah, this one was another one that people were a little bit divided on. I personally don't do it. I leave my full home address off my resume and will just have my city, state, and the zip code that I reside in. I think part of it is, again, just saving space. And then part of it is you're sending your resume out, and when you're job searching now, you might be sending it out to 300 different companies. You don't know what their information security looks like and what happens with this personal information once you send it out.
Well, there's also that side of subtle discrimination. Like, I live in the fancy postal code or zip code, oh, look at me, big flex, I'm from a nice neighborhood. Or like, oh, I got to put in that I'm not from the best neighborhood. Candidates should be treated equally, right? They shouldn't be discriminated against based on like where they live in a city.
Absolutely. That's another really great point. And that's why a lot of resume guidelines are about trying to find ways to reduce that discrimination. Another one that I think might be mentioned in this article is keeping your headshot off your resume. A lot of people try to include a picture of themselves, and it's just not necessary. It opens you up for discrimination before you've even had a chance to get a call back.
But my mother says I'm very handsome, Megan.
Well, I mean, they can see your handsome face once they've checked your resume and decided they want to interview you.
Of course, if I were applying to be a model, which would never happen, then maybe a headshot's good. I don't know.
Yeah, true. There are certain industries where it's standard. It totally makes sense to send a headshot. But for most jobs you're applying to, leave it off. You don't need it.
Now, we went over references available upon request. It's just this needless copy at the end of your resume, taking up space. What about putting your references on your resume? What if you got really impressive ones? Like, I don't know, a former musician, politician, someone famous.
Right. I mean, that would be a great flex, but I would personally leave those off because you want to have control over when companies are reaching out to those people so you can give them a heads up. You don't want companies just randomly being able to call your references willy-nilly when maybe you haven't had a chance to reach out to, Shaquille O'Neal and let him know that he's your reference.
He is my reference? I can put him on my resume now?
I won't stop you.
If I put him on there and no one reached out, I would look great. Megan, thanks for going over these with me. Is there any tip that you recommend to someone who's just getting into the daunting process of writing a resume based on these?
Yes. Take a big, deep breath and don't feel like it needs to be 100% perfect when you finish your first draft of your resume. Send it to a friend that you trust or a colleague that you trust, somebody you know who does great work in your industry and who understands what people are looking for. They are going to give you the best feedback that's personalized to you, what you're looking for, and any problems or even little typos that might sneak past your eye after you've been staring at your resume for 8 godforsaken hours.
Megan, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Megan Liscomb is a senior lifestyle editor at BuzzFeed. When we come back, things parents who have rebellious children do. Maybe you do some of these. Find out what they are so you can stop.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The Last Show with David Cooper, where we believe website first, business plan second. Or should we say radio jingle first, content second.
Your confidence is really,
Thank you.
Lifting me up.
Born confident, ready to jump in. In some ways, we already have. Do parents create rebellious kids? Psychology says maybe. Let's dive into the behaviors that fuel disobedience, not just in your kids, but in you, and what actually works. I'm here with Dr. Vanessa Lapointe, who's a speaker, author, parent educator, and former psychologist based out of Vancouver, Canada. Dr. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Okay, I know from my parents' behavior that the way they acted caused me to misbehave. I kind of responded to something in them. So when I started going through an article about the behaviors of parents who raise kids who are meshuggahs, as my mother would say, Yiddish for idiots, misbehaviors, whatever, it kind of rung with me. It's not just the kids, is it? It's parents' behavior that can really cause kids to behave badly.
Absolutely. And sometimes there are sort of neurodevelopmental things that might make a child present in certain kinds of ways. But generally speaking, you can think of human beings as social creatures. And because of that, children will go and grow as a result of how it is they are parented and the kinds of interactions that drip, drop, fill them up, particularly over the first, 6 to 8 years of their life.
I was the youngest kid. My older brother was the oldest. Wow, that's how age works. And while raising him, it was like if he wanted to go left, my parents would say right. If he wanted to do something, they'd say no. If he didn't want to do something, they'd make him do it. And they had a lot of problems with him. Whereas with me, they just kind of, ignored me. And that brings me to my first point, being too controlling. I see parents that are too controlling, and it does affect their kids. It does make their kids want to rebel. Say, you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah, and kids are really here on this planet to emerge into their own being. They're meant to be becoming something that comes from inside of them, not something that's squashed onto the top of them. And so it's important as parents that we have guidelines and rules and boundaries and norms and expectations. It's also important that we allow the child to become who it is that they are, not who it is that we believe they should be.
And I think protecting your kids from making too many mistakes actually does them a disservice as adults, because as adults, they're going to make mistakes and they got to learn the tools to deal with mistake making and fixing it when they're young. That's like one of the most important skills.
And not that you should run around and make life extra challenging and throw roadblocks in the way and make there be, extra bumps in the road. And that if children are encased in this methodology, we may call it safetyism, where we're like, and we have to make everything be just so, and we can't ever let them be upset, and, all those kinds of things. You're right. How do you learn to be adaptive? Where do you develop through experience? It's not a lesson to be taught, but an experience to be embraced.
How about this one? Because my parents still don't listen. They just, I call it having a conversation at my mother. We just speak at each other, not to each other. I joke, of course, but I do think kids' emotions and feelings are important. Treat them for what they are. But you gotta treat kids and their big emotions as valid. A lot of parents just don't listen or care when kids are going through it if the parents don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, I'll respond to that by hitting you with a Freud quote. Freud said, "That which stays in and comes forth later in uglier ways." And so as parents, we can think about the idea better out than in. We actually want for our children to express rather than depress the things that they have going on inside of them. And if we are able to listen empathically in an active sort of way, they really feel like they've got that off their chest, so to speak, rather than having it stuck inside and festering away. You can think about it kind of like a beach ball that just every time we don't listen and we don't respond empathically, we're just pushing that beach ball further and further and further and further under the water. And one day that beach ball will explode through the surface, whether it's a misbehaving kid or a really unhappy adult.
I thought you were about to say one day that child will put a psychiatrist's children through university or college, which is what I've done with my shrink. With me, my parents, they didn't really follow through with punishments. They would say, oh, you're grounded. And then the next day they wouldn't care if I went out. With my older brother, it was way too much discipline. It was way too much punishments. Is being too harsh with discipline, is that a way to, mess up your kids?
Absolutely. And I would actually distinguish between discipline and punishment. So punishment is when you're just at all costs watching behavior. So I make your life really miserable and really uncomfortable, so you'll never do that thing again. Whereas discipline is to disciple or to teach. And it's coming at it from the front end. It's understanding that kids are kids, and sort of by design, they have immature brains. So they're going to do dumb things, and they're going to mess up, and they're going to be impulsive, and they're going to be reactive. And our job is to make sense of that through a developmental lens and come alongside them rather than being harsh and punitive in the face of it.
Okay. Well, along that line, I guess separating discipline and punishments, consequences. This was another thing. Growing up, if I failed a grade, my parents would get upset and the next day they wouldn't care. If my brother failed a grade, they'd be mad at him. Well, they're still mad at him in his 40s. A lot of parents talk a big game and then don't follow through, which makes kids realize they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. I mean, how we do one thing is how we do all things, and kids figure that out really quickly. So I would distinguish along the lines of discipline between contrived consequences, which is the stuff we make up to try and control our kids, versus natural consequences. And I would suggest that if you're going to set a boundary, if you're going to request that your child do a chore or whatever other thing you might have going on, that you really stick to it. Because when your children learn that if they chirp at you long enough and loud enough that you will cave and you will soften and you will make it different, then guess what they're going to do every time? Because they're not dumb. They figure it out. They are social creatures, and that's part of how we operate.
Well, I'm dumb, but most children aren't. What about freedom? This was what my biggest problem was. My parents just gave me infinite freedom, and I kind of felt unseen. I could just come and go as I pleased. I would come home past my curfew. My dad would just be up on the TV and say hi and not care. It actually wasn't great to have too much freedom growing up. I know kids that lived in a strict house are listening to me talk and think, oh, you had it so bad. But it wasn't great having too much freedom.
Think about it like you're driving across a bridge. And just for the purposes of the example, make it sort of a really big, kind of scary bridge. And the idea is that we need guardrails on the bridge. Because most people, if you approached a bridge and somebody had removed the guardrails from the bridge, either you're not going to drive over the bridge because that's going to be too terrifying, or if you do drive over the bridge, you're going to stick to the center and you're going to drive very slowly. But if I ask most adults, have you ever actually run into the guardrails on a bridge? Most people are going to say no. And then the follow-up question is, well, then why do you need them? And the answer is because it keeps you safe. It gives you this sense of security. And that's why too much freedom also becomes a negative. We need, particularly as children, we need guardrails on the bridge to feel like we're kind of contained in this topsy-turvy thing called life.
All right, well, if you just don't do what we talked about, then you might raise good kids, hopefully. I mean, at least not disobedient ones, right? That's the perfect formula?
That's the perfect formula.
Dr. Vanessa, thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate your time. This was fun.
My pleasure.
Dr. Vanessa Lapointe is a speaker, an author, a parent educator, and former psychologist based out of Vancouver, Canada. Like what you hear but missed part of the show? Want to stream the last show on demand? Or missed a night? Want to catch up? Well, I got good news for you. The last show is available as a podcast. Just head on over to www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com. Lastshow.pizza. And there you can find out more about our podcast. And find links to our social media. Give us a follow. Coming up after the break, we'll look at the secrets of being well rested. So if you're groggy in the morning or you're having trouble sleeping, or you know someone who does, some simple changes you can make without buying any fancy equipment will be revealed in just a few moments. And will I preach about my secret tip when it comes to using your phone before bed? That'll be the cliffhanger for the other side of the break.
Want to be part Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Getting older can mean more tossing in bed, more turning, and feeling tired all day. But what if I told you the secret to a better sleep is as simple as getting a lamp? Scientists say morning blue light might fix your sleep, unless, of course, you're a vampire, in which case I can't help you, at least not tonight. I'm here with Débora Constantino, a chronobiology postgraduate research student at the University of Surrey, investigating how blue light exposure may help your sleep. Débora, thanks for talking to me today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So how does blue light help older adults sleep a little better?
Yes, so imagine that your body has an internal clock. So it's kind of a master clock that helps you stay in sync with the world around you. So this works like an internal oscillator, similar to an actual clock. And this clock is heavily influenced by light, especially blue light. So humans evolved under the natural rhythm of the sun. So a bright blue sky in the morning signaled to our ancestors that it was time to be awake and active. So this is why we have specialized receptors in our eyes that are particularly sensitive to blue light. And even though we don't live in caves anymore, these receptors still play a vital role in regulating our sleep and wake cycles. So when blue light enters your eyes in the morning, it sends a signal to your brain's master clock that helps to increase alertness and sets your internal clock for the day. So in the morning, blue light helps you to wake up your brain, make you feel more alert and energized.
How accurate is the clock? Because I've had this experience where I set my morning alarm for 8 a.m. and I wake up at 7:59, 1 minute before it's about to go off. I can't believe how accurate mine is. Is that normal? Are our internal clocks very accurate?
Yes, it's kind of accurate, but usually, so researchers say that we don't have a 24-hour internal clock. It's a little more, it's longer than 24 hours. So that's why we also need light to synchronize us to this 24-hour day that we live.
Got it. So older folks, if they're having trouble sleeping, if they're not getting a great sleep, what trick can they do to try to improve that?
Yes. So what we see is that older adults usually, they take a longer time to fall asleep. So their sleep latency is longer. And usually they also have a more fragmented sleep. So they wake up more during the night. They have interruptions during the night. And then this can reduce their sleep quality and total sleep duration. So what we recommend is getting more light during the day. Could be from a light source, a light box, if you live in an area or you are in a season where you get more dark during the day, you can have a light box or just step outside for a walk. Try to get as much natural daylight as possible. Natural daylight is much more powerful than artificial light. So this can help you synchronize your rhythms and sleep cycles.
Your study suggests that light therapy could be an affordable, non-medication-based way to improve sleep. What kind of lamp should people get, and when should they use it if they want to try to improve their sleep cycles?
Yes, so if using a light box, it should be a very bright light box, so over 1000 lux or even more. And also timing of light is very important. So we recommended using it in the morning. So in our study, we saw that older adults that used for a longer time in the morning had a more stable rhythm. And those who used it in the evening, they had a more sleep fragmentation. So timing of light exposure is incredibly important, especially when it comes to blue light. While morning blue light is beneficial for aligning your internal clock and promoting alertness.
Débora, the single biggest change I made for my sleep is when I started plugging in my smartphone in a different room than the room I slept in. And that way, just before bed, I wasn't getting all the blue light from the screen. Is that a simple change people could make, getting the phone away from them when it's time to wind down for bed?
Yeah, sure. So in the evening, the idea would be to dim all the lights, all the light sources. Even in blue light can disrupt indeed the quality of your sleep, leading to more fragmented and less restful sleep. So it might be wise to use like dimmer, longer wavelength lighting, like warmer red light in the evening before sleep to allow for this.
It seems like every computer or every smartphone has a night mode or a night shift mode. It basically dims the light from high intensity blue to more warmer light. I always thought that was a gimmick, but is that a good thing to be using if you're going to have to be on your phone before bed?
Yes, I don't think there's enough like scientific evidence showing a benefit of using these filters. But if it helps you, you could use, this filters, blue light filters in the evening or just dim the lights, yes.
Knowing what you know from your study, what would be some practical takeaways? Like if I know that I'm not sleeping great and I know that I'm exposed to too much blue light in the evening and not enough blue light in the morning, what changes could I make to try to improve my sleep?
You could try to get light like as soon as you wake up to get more light. Sit close to a window. If you have to like work from home, you can try to work close by the window. Open the curtains, go for a walk whenever you can, and then close to bedtime, like 4 hours before bedtime in the evening, try to dim all lights, try to stay away from stress, so stressful situations. Also, we don't use glasses with blue light filtering during the day. If you have this kind of glasses, use it in the evening, because during the day we don't want to block blue light. We want to get more blue light during the day and less in the evening.
Getting more technical about your blue light receptors, do they function when your eyelids are closed? Do they still work when your eyes are closed and you're sleeping?
Yes, some light passes through your eyes even when they're closed. Of course, it's much less, but there's still some light coming in. So even when we're sleeping, we should sleep in a very dark environment.
My last question, is everyone equal in their response to blue light, or are some people particularly more sensitive and others not? For example, maybe I have trouble sleeping if there's too much light in the bedroom, but my girlfriend doesn't. Are we all the same, or is there great variance in people's response to it?
Yes, no, that's a great question. People are different in terms of sensitivity to light. So there are people that are much more sensitive to blue light, while others are less sensitive. And there's many studies being conducted in this topic. We still don't know why some people are more sensitive than others, what characteristics they have that others don't. But we know that people are very, very different in terms of sensitivity to light, yes.
Well, you've armed my nighttime argument with my girlfriend, because I always yell at her to turn off the lights and she never does. So I'm going to play this for her later, and hopefully she'll turn off the lights earlier. Débora, thank you so much for talking to me about your study.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Débora Constantino is a chronobiology postgraduate student at the University of Surrey in the United Kingdom. That's the show. Thank you so much for listening to it. Check out our website and podcast at www.lastshow.pizza. If you've got any feedback or want to leave a wacky voicemail for the show, the number is 1-888-505-6644. That's 1-888-505-6644. Give me a call, even when we're not on air. I might even answer. We'll be back tomorrow night on Wednesday with Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday, the world's only mental health segment intended for Thursdays that airs on Wednesdays, and more. Just more. More of more. We'll have more tomorrow night. That's a mouthful. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.